I've heard some writers say that you should never write about a writer or you should never write about an artist, because it's just very difficult to do well in a way that's engaging to the reader. But um, I I like it. I like, for example, the way that having a character who's a novelist, I get to imagine the way they see the world by imagining their works and coming up with them. It feels like, that's a really fun way of building out a character. Um, and it also fit with one thing I really wanted to do with this book, which is to create characters who reveal different parts of themselves and change significantly over the course of the book. In previous times, I've often had characters sort of like just on their own trajectory. It's a collision trajectory, or it's something else, but another person doesn't truly change the course of their lives. And so this is one where I knew the kind of person I wanted Cassie to appear to be on the surface, and I knew the kind of person I wanted Patrick to appear to be on the surface. And the big challenge was figuring out how I could find these little points of contact that would make them really relate to one another and begin to be close and to depend on one another in a way. So that was a lot of discovery throughout the process, I think. I really envisioned it as, here's the surface version of a person, and here's how they would appear to the other person on first meeting. But what happens if you peel off one layer? What's the thing that wouldn't be immediately apparent? What's the thing they wouldn't want to show someone unless they knew them quite well? What's the thing that they wouldn't want to show anyone but would slip through in being near someone in a time when they received a disturbing phone call or something? So I built their characters out sort of by building them in together, and making them reveal different things about themselves to each other. Again, as with other characters, there's a little bit of me snuck in different places, but I don't think anyone could really identify which bits are me.
Do you tend to character sketch ahead of time, or do you kind of get to know them in your imagination and let them lead you where you're going to head on the page, so to speak?
I keep a section of a notebook for each character. And as I'm going through my day, I try to always be thinking about them in the background. And when something sort of pops in, like, Patrick would hate this thing that the cashier just said, then I write it down. And you begin to like accumulate a cloud of things about a character that helps you understand like where their center is. I find it hard to reason my way through a character, like I sort of feel that if I have too rigid a sense of what their life has been and how they work at the beginning, then I won't be surprised by them. And and then I always want to be surprised. It makes it more fun for you as the writer too. And I think like one thing that we neglect sometimes when thinking about how to write a novel is that it's going to take you years, and you have to keep yourself interested and engaged, and you have to crack some jokes to yourself in the process of writing it in the text, because it's about keeping yourself with the project as well as keeping the reader with it. LA is such an interesting city because it's so large. You can really have a totally different experience on it based on where you're plopped down. I lived as a child in the San Gabriel Valley, which is a place no one goes to for fun. It's a drive-by part of Los Angeles, but I have so many vivid memories of that place. And when I go to other places in LA, I see resemblances, but not exact resemblances. So yeah, it's got this just radically exploded sense of space and still an LA-ness to it all, right? So I spend a lot of time there, sometimes for work, and I would go around like a more famous, more photographed area. And then I realized to write this, I really needed to get to see some places that people don't usually go to, I think. Because there's something about like when you see that Disney concert hall, for example, you don't really see the Disney concert hall. You see like your memories of the Disney concert hall and what you know about it. So LA for me really lives in like these little out of the way places and these little details that people sort of forget about, coyotes walking through the neighborhood. And so I would sometimes take an Uber or take my rental car to like a place with an interesting name and then get out there and be like, oh, actually, this is kind of like every other place. But as you keep walking around, you see like, oh no, this is a strange sort of suburb of its own. And the name is like some developer's dream of what this place could be. And it's kind of that, it's kind of not. But I think a lot of blank time, wandering, observing, and sitting yourself down in spots where you can be surprised again. Like I would spend hours writing at this diner that was conveniently off the highway between the places I was sort of writing about. I spent a week in the San Fernando Valley without a car, walking every place I wanted to see, which was tough. But I think it's on foot that you really see stuff, even though there's a lot of scenes in the car. That's its own LA experience. But there's an interesting way in LA in which things can get weird, because they aren't witnessed by that many people. People don't stop to see them or visit them, so they can be as weird or as anachronistic, like things out of the 70s or 50s or 40s, and they just get to remain there like little fossils.